And let's talk about our top story, the Uniform Civil Code. A contentious issue in a diverse country like India has seen for and against arguments for decades now. In the latest, the government has requested the Law Commission of India to examine various issues relating to the UCC and make recommendations thereon. This comes 2 days after Law Minister Kiren Rijiju in the Lok Sabha said that BJP's stand on UCC should be taken as the government stand. Of course, now the government has also said that there is no plan for the panel to implement the UCC. They're only looking at the issues currently. But what is, after all, the Uniform Civil Code? As the title says it, the law intends to formulate one law which would be applicable to all religions. The code comes under Article 44 of the Constitution. Its objective was to address the discrimination against vulnerable groups and harmonize diverse cultural groups. Back in the day, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, while formulating the Constitution, had said that UCC is desirable, but for the moment it should remain voluntary, and therefore it was looked at as an aspect that would be fulfilled when the nation would be ready to accept it. What happens when UCC is implemented? Now, to explain this, let me take the example of criminal laws in India. Criminal laws are uniform and are applicable equally to all, no matter what their religious beliefs are. But when it comes to civil laws, at the moment, they are influenced by faith. For instance, in Hinduism, personal laws which come into effect in civil cases are applicable to legal issues related to inheritance, succession, marriage, adoption, partition of family property, so on and so forth. In Islam too, personal laws apply to matters linked to inheritance, wills, gifts, marriage, divorce, etc. So in simple terms, UCC, when enacted, will work to simplify laws that are segregated at present on the basis of religious beliefs like the Hindu Code Bill, Shariat Law, Christian Marriage Act, Parsi Marriage Act or Divorce Act. It will be applicable to all citizens irrespective of their faith. But if it's so simple, why is the issue at the center of a political narrative? Why is it at a critical inflection point? That's because the experts have questioned the logic of state-level common civil codes. Meaning, Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami during poll campaign had promised to bring in the UCC if elected to power. He indicated at how his administration could set a precedent for others to follow. So experts here have questioned the decentralized approach by the BJP-led state governments to frame laws and enforce them minus a central legislation. Critics point out that state-specific laws are not the same as having one uniform civil approach. Therefore, this brings us to ask if UCC is required or is it just a political gimmick? Does a diverse country like ours need a uniform civil code? And most importantly, is India ready for a uniform civil code? To discuss this, I'm joined by Charu Pragya, spokesperson of the BJP, Lokesh Jindal, political analyst, Professor Tanvir Aeijaz, who's a columnist and academician, and Namit Saxena, an advocate. Thank you so much for joining us this evening on this critical topic. Mr. Saxena, I'd like to come to you first. Help us simplify the Uniform Civil Code. Break it down for us. What are the changes we could potentially see if and when the code is implemented?
The constitutional expectation, as you said, that that criminal laws are religion neutral. They don't depend on what faith you practice. Similarly, you may not practice any faith at all. So what Uniform Civil Code tries to do is that civil laws, including personal laws, will not be dependent on what faith or what religion you practice. They'll be religion neutral, irrespective of whatever faith you have. Same set of principles, same set of laws will apply to you in relation to marriage, adoption, maintenance, divorce proceedings, and
Mr. Saxena, apologies to interrupt there. I think there is an issue with your audio. I'll let you fix that audio issue and get back to you soon. In the meantime, let me go across to Charu Pragya. Charu, I want to come to you to understand the BJP stand on the sensitive issue. We heard the Law Minister the other day, Kiren Rijiju, make a statement in the Lok Sabha saying the BJP stand is clear and it should be taken as the government stand. What makes you think that India is ready for the Uniform Civil Code?
See, we must remember that India is a progressive country. India is a secular country, and our government stands for Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So that itself means that all religions need to be equal in the eyes of law. Any other secular, progressive, developed country in the world, whether you talk about France, whether you talk about Australia, they all have a uniform civil code. In India, the state of Goa has uniform civil code, and we have never heard of a communal violence breaking out in the state of Goa. So this goes on to show that while criminal laws can be uniform in our country, the punishment for theft, punishment for murder will always be the same. It doesn't matter which religion you are from. Why is it that inheritance laws, why is it that at the time of marriage or divorce, why is it that at the time of looking after children, everything is so diverse and different and frankly regressive? So these are medieval era laws which are important for people who practice appeasement politics. That's the basic fact of it. It is people, political parties who practice appeasement politics that wants to stay away from uniform civil code. Ironically, it was Nehruji who spoke about uniform civil code. Unfortunately, he could not include it in our constitution then, and it remains in the directive principles of state policy. But today, seeing the way our country is progressing, I think it is very important when we say the legal marriageable age of a girl child is 21, it remains that for girls of all religions. When we talk about securing the future of a girl, her parents want to leave her property, it is important that when we have a law for some religions which says a girl gets equal share, why not in all religions? Why not? Why is it that a divorced Muslim woman, we recently talked about triple talaq in similar ways. So certain laws which are human laws, certain laws which are not stopping you from your personal practice of faith need to be uniform. The myth which the opposition spreads in the country is that this is going to stop you from professing your religion, practicing your religion, which is fact lie. Nobody is stopping anybody from practicing their religion. But when it comes to important things, when it comes to making sure everybody is treated with the same respect, the human rights remain the same, the security offered to women, and this is more specifically for women. The men have always had things their own way. I'm sorry I have to say this, but in religions where we are still practicing medieval laws, personal laws, it is women who suffer. So it is these men who are probably wanting to keep women away from security, women away from actual human rights, women away from claiming their equal rights.
Okay, so you're saying that these medieval laws are ailing India and that the Uniform Civil Code here is quite a progressive step. Let me go back to Mr. Saxena. He's back with me. Mr. Saxena, go ahead, make your point. Help us understand this law, if and when it's implemented.
The Article 41 of the Constitution falls in the category of directive principles of state policy, which are in form of directions, under the Constitution, in form of expectations to the state, that these are the principles which you may, in accordance with whatever needs are of the society, you may implement. So Article 44 discusses Uniform Civil Code. Now, it is form of a constitutional expectation asking that, whatever civil law we follow should be religion neutral. Like, you said that criminal law in India is religion neutral. Civil law, including that of personal law, should be independent of whatever faith you practice or whatever faith you don't practice, or in case you don't practice any faith at all. So it includes that as well. So this is what in short is Article 44, which says that any personal law, civil law, including that of marriage, including that of adoption, including that of maintenance, including that of divorce, will not depend on whatever religion or faith you practice. This is in short Article 44, what it says. So it will, so all these complexities of if one, if there are two people who get married, if one follows a particular set of religion, the other person follows a different set of faith, so it will remove the anomaly between, under the Special Marriage Act or Parsi Marriage Act or Hindu Marriage Act. So it will remove these anomalies of personal law in relationship between two people, largely. This is what Article 44 expects. So this is in form of a constitutional expectation, which the state is may follow, may not follow. It depends. It's in form of a voluntary exercise.
Right. So you are saying it will help get rid of anomalies and bring everyone under a uniform law. Professor Aeijaz, your opinions on this? What are the deep-rooted problems and challenges the Act, has as hurdles here? What are the hurdles to the UCC?
Yeah, but before talking about the hurdles, let me talk about the intent of UCC. Uniform Civil Code in the Constitution was incorporated in directive principles of state policy, with the purpose of having, equality in all cases, not just personal laws. My simple question is that why we are raking uniform civil code, when the purpose of uniform civil code can be, achieved better by implementing the fundamental rights of the Constitution. Fundamental rights are justiciable rights. DPSP is not a justiciable provisions, right? So why we rake up uniform civil code all the time? And this is basically being raked up by the by the Bharatiya Janata Party and the government, all the time, talking about that they want changes in the marriage, divorce, inheritance, all these provisions they want a change, right? Fine, I'm happy, if the change comes as a progressive change, I'm very happy about it. But the unfortunate part of it, that the pitch of BJP is highly communal and conservative. A party which is conservative cannot vouch for a progressive ideal that the BJP exposed person is talking about. It's a wild fancy for us, what is the bucket list of uniform civil code? Can I ask the BJP spokesperson to lay down the details of the marriage, of the intestacy, of the wills, of the inheritance, of the cremation, various provisions which are there within the family system, Hindu joint family system? Can she talk about that? Why it is only geared towards tax laws and not for the property laws? If you want to have a gender just society, think about, even in DPSP also, think about Article 39, which talks about the concentration of wealth in the hands of few at the detriment of the common people. Think about Article 39A, which requires, gender just equality. Talk about these articles. Why do you have to talk? It's a wild fancy. It's a chimera. Uniform Civil Code is a chimera. And let me tell you, Baba Sahib Ambedkar did say that it is difficult to implement, but he said that only a mad government will implement Uniform Civil Code. It's on record. So I don't know why every time when we have a crisis in terms of economic crisis, we are dealing with Uniform Civil Code. I have no idea.
Okay, before I go to Mr. Jindal, I know Charu Pragya has a point to make. Charu, go ahead, a quick point.
Yeah, so very quickly, I'll tell you what is the ideal. The ideal is that on one side, we wait for a girl to be mature, to be an adult before we marry her off. There is another religion which says it's fine at the age of 12, 13, whenever she gets onto her period. On one side, we say a girl, a daughter is equally precious to the parents. But if this daughter happens to be a Muslim child, she does not have the same rights. A mother who's a Muslim after a divorce does not have custody rights. So
Okay, we seem to have that connection issue with Charu Pragya there, but on this particular point that Charu has made, on this particular issue that Charu has made, Mr. Jindal, I want to come to you. We've discussed. Okay, I have Charu Pragya back with me. Charu Pragya, go ahead and complete your point there.
Also, we cannot be selective about using the Muslim personal laws. Are you using them for criminal crimes as well? Are you saying that if a person commits theft, you're chopping off his hand? So why are you making especially women go through this kind of torture which does not exist in the modern world? I gave you examples of all progressive nations. They've got people of all different religions living there peacefully. And the reason for that is laws need to be equal. Laws need to be above your personal beliefs. Laws have to be at a place which are progressive for everyone, not selectively. It cannot be selective.
Okay, Charu Pragya, you've made one point saying that there are certain, personal laws and civil laws in India under which a woman, moment she reaches puberty, maybe 12, 13, she's considered okay to get married. I want to actually ask this point to the advocate here, Mr. Saxena. We do have certain laws in place. For example, child marriage is illegal in India. So how do we differentiate if there is a certain law that perhaps is passed under or is accepted under certain personal laws, but is considered criminal and illegal in the other acts and other laws? How do you clearly differentiate that?
No, in my opinion, the general law is civil. For example, under the Juvenile Justice Act, we have so many matters under it. any child who is below the years of 18 years of age is considered to be juvenile in conflict with law, irrespective of whatever religion his parents may practice. He is a minor, so he is treated as a minor. So similarly, the Indian Penal Code also distinguishes between, if a person is between the age of 0 to 7 years, 7 to 12 years, 12 to 18 years, or even the Juvenile Justice Act differentiates between if a child, juvenile in conflict with law, between the age bracket of 16 to 18 years commits a heinous crime after the Nirbhaya, unfortunate incident of Nirbhaya in Delhi. So all these are religion neutral. So I don't think, that religion comes to play, or whatever religion the parents practice comes to play at all in such cases where a juvenile is in conflict with law. But, as Ms. Charu Pragya also pointed out, see, it has to be, gender neutral or religion neutral, because, the law does not distinguish between juveniles in conflict with law on the basis of the religion that their parents practice. As a progressive society, we are moving towards where, the parents can practice different faiths, or one parent can practice a faith, the other cannot, or desires not to practice a faith at all. So all these issues will come to a quietus if we have a uniform civil code in civil matters also. So I think this is a welcome step. And what has happened in Uttarakhand is, and this is something which is also extremely important, see, Uttarakhand is a comparatively geographically smaller state. As an experiment, if it comes in Uttarakhand and we see, what is the outcome, if it is, if you're moving towards as a society, progressing towards as a society, why not? Why not implement it, in the entire country?
Okay, so are we looking at Uttarakhand like a pilot project? I'll come to that, but quickly let me bring in Mr. Jindal there. Mr. Jindal, does India even need a UCC? Is it a viable option for a country like ours with so many religions, castes and subcastes to have this rule established here?
Certainly. Now, recently, the Oxfam report, it pointed out that there are widening inequalities in India. Inequalities on the basis of gender, on the basis of caste, religion, even on the basis of linguistic groups, there are widespread inequalities. Now, you have certain people who are living on different modes of livelihood, who are having different social institutions, they practice different customs, traditions, and they do not even enjoy the same educational level and the economic means so that they can access justice like a person who's living in an urban area and having adequate means of livelihood. We don't even have enough of judicial institutions so as to administer justice. And when you are going to introduce Article 44, what about free legal aid, which is yet a distant goal? Now, till the time we do not have an equal society, socially, economically, educationally, which does not practice a same code of conduct, which does not have the same ethos. Introducing a uniform civil code would be something like a top-down approach. It would be seen as a draconian law in the time to come, because social institutions will be incompatible in getting incorporated to this particular form of a way of life. So I would say it's too soon. The government needs to look at other articles in the DPSP rather than simply focusing upon Article 44. Needs to achieve various goals, social, economic goals, which it should have achieved. And only then let this uniform civil code be realized from a bottom-up and top-down approach. Let us involve more civil societies, NGOs, people's groups, and slowly it would be a realization on itself rather than politicizing this issue.
All right, Ms. Pragya, I want to come to you. Mr. Jindal says that, right now exercising the UCC in a society that's already so unequal and has so many, levels and flavors to the kind of religion and caste and culture that we have, that exercising right now at this critical juncture may not be a wise aspect. So how do you think that the UCC will bring about that equality and, also sort of empower all of those sections in order to not discriminate against them?
So, have you noticed that even Mr. Jindal has not disagreed with the need for uniform civil code, but he wants to prioritize something else. So at the end of the day, he also agrees that our country needs uniform civil code. I have taken examples of other countries, and all these countries are mixing pots of religion. I'll talk about Australia first, because, that is one country which has had uniform civil code. It's got citizens from other countries settling in there. It has got people who follow different religions. At the end of the day, they are able to live in one place peacefully, because the law does not change depending on what your religion is. And I again want to say this: the only thing the opposition hides behind today is by misleading people by saying that you will not be able to practice your religion. And Uniform Civil Code is very, very clear on that. You have absolute personal freedom to practice your religion. And like I said, Uniform Civil Code is going to be impacting the lives of women more than the lives of men, because for generations, for eons, men have always had a much more comfortable life than women have had. So when the Triple Talaq bill was introduced, there was a lot of discussion about that. There was also a lot of negative discussion about that. But we saw how Muslim women supported that bill, because at the end of the day, they felt life has become secure for them. Life is going to become more and more secure for their daughters as they grow up. Uniform Civil Code is going to do the same thing. I think if a man wants to leave his wife tomorrow, or if a girl loses in-laws or her husband tomorrow, they need to be offered the same security.
Okay, fair enough. Professor Aeijaz, your take on this. Experts have questioned the logic of state-level common civil codes, and that's what we were discussing about Uttarakhand there. So, going on to say that state-specific laws is not the same as having a centralized law. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Article 34 of the Constitution entrusts the central government with the task of securing a uniform civil code. Is it then rational for, states, here for instance, Uttarakhand, is it rational for states like them to form committees and mull its implementation?
Yeah. I think there's a slight information that I want to give to your audience is that, Uniform Civil Code, the issues which are there in the Uniform Civil Code, which is intestacy, marriage, wills, etc., all this comes within the entry 5 of the concurrent list, right? So a state has the power to frame laws regarding the issues of marriage or issues of wills or issues of intestacy. So it is fine. But the point is, what I'm trying to say to the BJP spokesperson is that, let us talk why Uniform Civil Code boils down to discussion only on Muslim personal law. All religion you have patriarchy in all religion, right? All religion needs a lot of reforms. All religion requires progressive laws, right? Where women get equal rights to men. And I'm seeing that, in the civil procedure code, in the criminal procedure code, or largely in the public law, even the constitutional law, all of them, they provide enough of evidence, enough of provisions, enough of, provisions which where women's rights can be achieved. I mean, what can be? I ask you certain questions. What would be the Uniform Civil Code on a Special Marriage Act? What would be Uniform Civil Code on sexual minorities? What would be Uniform Civil Code on joint Hindu family laws? What would be Uniform Civil Code on Christian personal laws? All these things, of course, we need to sit, and I agree with her, on the point that, that we need to have a robust discussion. We need to have a discussion on the issues which relates with the subjugation of women in the society, and eliminate all kinds of patriarchal understandings within the religion.
Okay. Mr. Jindal, I know you have a point. I also have a question to you. Do you think the Uniform Civil Code would strengthen secularism, or do you have lingering doubts about the way it could be established in, in the current regime?
See, first of all, secularism as a word is widely a contested term. I think it is misunderstood. It involves that the state must distance itself from religion and must restrict itself solely to the temporal world. So it usually never used to interfere into the personal matters of an individual. That was what was secularism all about. It was not anti-religion in any sense. And if you talk about the Indian form of secularism, it was more about giving equal respect to all religions. So if you are talking about Indian form of secularism, we have more reasons so as to be careful before introducing a uniform civil code. Now, if you look at Kerala, there are various societies where the girl does not leave the home and come to the guy's family. Rather, the guy, he enters the girl's family. And in Meghalaya and even in Uttarakhand, there are various regions where there is matriarchy, where there are polygamy, where there are polyandry also. So when we are talking about such societies, without introducing there an adequate reforms on the social and economic front, on the livelihood front? If you suddenly introduce these uniform civil codes, what about Schedule 5, Schedule 6 areas? What about regions whereby certain tribal areas are to be given protections and the parliament is restricted from introducing laws? What about these regions? So I would say there is a lot more to be done. There is a lot of base to be prepared before you can actually build upon a society based upon uniform civil code.
Okay.
So let us get our basics right before we move ahead and imitate the Western world and compare ourselves to Australia or America or European nations. Let us first get our basics correct.
So to understand the demography of our own country and then, decide on the next step, one final question to all the panelists, a common question there before I wrap up this discussion. Is India ready for a uniform civil code? I'd like to start with Charu Pragya. Go ahead. Okay, we'll try and reconnect with Charu Pragya, but Mr. Saxena is with me. Mr. Saxena, is India ready for the Uniform Civil Code? Your opinion?
My answer would be yes. As a progressive society, and in fact, and if I may say so, then if not today, then when? We can't, see, this is a constitutional expectation we're talking about. Every constitutional provision carries some significance. It's not a dead letter of law. That is why it was incorporated in the final text of the constitution, rather. It's been 75 years of, rather 70 odd years of our constitution being adopted by the people of this country. So I think it's high time that we move forward and we look, forward towards, for example, Uttarakhand can be treated as a pilot project. And let's start from there. There is some beginning. It's a concurrent list matter. States can legislate on it. And my answer to you is yes. Why not? Why not? We should go ahead with it.
Okay. Charu Pragya, I know your answer, but even then, I'd like to give you that opportunity. Is India ready for the UCC?
Yeah, no, and I also want to reply to the point Professor made. I understand that there are social evils and ills in every religion. It is not targeted specifically at Islam. But what has happened is in recent times, if a Hindu girl can be given a right to her parents' property, her in-laws' property, if she can be a part of the HUF officially, then why shouldn't these kind of rights be extended to women all across all religions? So that's what I'm trying to say. Religion should be evolving. It should be something which caters to the needs of all. We cannot keep one religion so medieval that till today we are not able to give somebody equal rights in our country.
Okay. Professor Aeijaz, your take.
Yeah, I think since independence, we have had a heated debate also in the Constituent Assembly about Uniform Civil Code. So the debate is on, the discourse is on. Right. But let's have an honest debate. I'm all for uniform civil code. But the fact is that let's have an honest debate, about what exactly we want in uniform civil code. Right. Let's break it down into different rubrics and discuss about it. The point that the spokesperson made, is that again, comparing Muslim and Hindus, there are other religions also in this country, right? Of course, let me complete. The point is that religion, I'm all for the removal of a stranglehold of ulemas over the Muslims, right? Or the Muslim society. This needs to be taken off. These ulemas stranglehold. But is this the way in which stranglehold of ulemas over the Muslim society could be taken out? One will have to think about it. What is the way in which we have to make clear that, look, in Islam also, there are provisions. We need to discuss Islam more moderately, more carefully, not the way how ulemas interpret Islam, or for that matter, for any, those who hold the religion, they discuss about the religion in their own way. So we need to discuss the whole issue from the perspective of having progressive laws rather than ancient or medieval laws. Okay. Right? We are in a modern society. Let's have a uniform civil code with a modern intent rather than having a conservative ancient ideas or perhaps medieval ideas. All
right. So due diligence there and discussion is the need of the hour before we implement that. One final question. I'd like to give the last word to Mr. Jindal. Is India ready or not for the uniform law?
Yeah, I would make a distinction over here. When we are talking about India being ready, we are looking at the polity. It's a top-down approach that is introducing uniform civil code via law, via politico-administrative system. And when we are talking about Indians ready, we have to look at the bottom-up approach. We have to look at the society. We have to look at the economic base, the social institutions, the Indian way of life. So there has to be a synthesis in both of them. We need to have in India the politico-administrative system, which is introducing legal and administrative framework, which is compatible to the socio-economic realities in the country, rather than simply having an utopian idea of a country which is having a uniform civil code. Let us get our reality. Let us have a fact checking done. Let us look at the demography. Let us look at the social reality that is happening. Even on the food front, I would say, on the literacy front, on the way of life, on every aspect, on poverty.
Fair enough.
And over a period of time, move towards uniform civil code gradually.
Yeah.
And constitutionally.
Hang on, Charu Pragya. Just let Jindal complete his point. I'll come right away to you.
Yes, so I would say that move towards uniform civil code democratically, constitutionally, and considering the reality, the social and economic reality of the country, rather than simply introducing a uniform civil code like farm laws and other forms of measures that the government has resorted to in the recent times.
Okay, Charu Pragya, go ahead. 30 seconds to make your point.
So, very respectfully, I want to say that every provision that we want to introduce through the Uniform Civil Code already exists in the elite society, the educated society, amongst people who want to treat their daughters as equals. It already exists. It does not exist in areas where there is grey. As Professor said, where the ulema is very powerful or it is misleading people. So please do not say that our citizens are not ready. They're absolutely ready. I don't know personally many Muslim people who've got 4 wives. They are allowed 4, but that's not how they function. Not at least the educated class, the progressive class. Why can we not make these kind of things available to every citizen of the country? So when you say that citizens are not ready, I'm sorry. I think it is people who want to misuse citizens as a vote bank who are not ready.
All right, fair enough. So I asked a direct question if India is ready or not. I got 2 direct answers from Mr. Saxena and Charu Pragya. Of course, it's a yes, but of course a very diplomatic answer from Professor Aeijaz and Mr. Jindal there. On that note, we'll have to wrap up this discussion. I'd like to thank my panelists this evening for joining us and sharing your perspective. Thank you so much. Well, it's time to slip into a short commercial break, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.